welcome to another episode of the Out of Office Club. It is currently very hot because I am in Barcelona, Spain. I was, of course, supposed to film this yesterday. I didn't because I was out with people from the co-living. So I didn't have time, managed it poorly, but here I am today, a bit later than expected. But today is all about co-livings because I think it is something a bit more unknown. Like if I tell people that I'm going to a co-living, especially if they're not in the digital nomad world or if they don't travel so much, they generally don't really know what it is. But I would love to give you a better understanding of what co-living is, what the pros and cons are, what my experience has been so far staying in two co-living so far, and yeah, why it might be a good option for your next trip. Because, as I said, many people don't really know what it is or how it could be interesting to them. So currently I, again, am in Barcelona and I'm staying at a co-living for just 1 week. And I've only been here now 5 days, but this co-living is very, very nice. I really, really enjoy it. If you follow me on Instagram, or you might have seen some more pictures of the place. And next week, I am going to share a lot more about this place, about what it's like, what my experience was at this specific co-living, what I did in Barcelona, all of that. So don't forget to follow and check. So first things first, what is a co-living and why choose it? So a co-living, I think, is nothing more than almost like a fancy upgraded version of a hostel or an apartment mixed with co-working spaces, because it is usually one big house or apartment complex where everyone lives together. So generally everyone has their own room, or maybe they share it with one other person, but then the common areas are shared, so like the kitchen. Most people do have their own bathroom as well, which is quite nice. And then there is, of course, the common area, like a living room. We even have a dining room here. We have an area to watch movies. And that's where everyone kind of lives together, but you also have your own space. And what is very important for these co-livings is that most have, of course, a very solid work area. So downstairs in the living room, they've made 2 desks with 4 spaces each and really, really good Wi-Fi. Because on average, most people that go to co-livings are working remote, online for themselves, whatever. So it is important for everyone to have a really good workspace. And that's why people go to co-livings. It is easy. So you get not only generally a very nice accommodation with your own room and bathroom, just like you would have in an Airbnb, but you also get a community included in it. So in this specific one, I think there's right now 7 people. I'm not sure if it's completely booked, but it's 7 people. Most people stay for a month, sometimes longer. I'm now a bit of the exception because I'm only here for a week. That's just how it kind of worked out. But generally people stay longer. And again, what I think I like so much is that most people's mindset when they are in these co-livings is the same. Everyone is here to mainly work. We all just have our very normal day-to-day, our structure. We work, but then we also want to explore whatever place we're at, and we want to build connections. So there is a sense of community as soon as you arrive. I think I checked in Wednesday, and on Thursday there was a community lunch, so everyone brought food. We all just sat down and chatted. And then this whole weekend I spent with people from my co-living, which was really, really nice. And then also today I'm going out with some people. It's just easy. When I stay in Airbnbs, which I also love, I do have to put a lot more effort into meeting people. I have to actively go to events, message them, set up plans. it is not as easy. While here in the co-living, all I have to do is just be in a common area. So today I was just working downstairs for a little bit, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of going into town today and grabbing dinner." I was like, "Great! I actually want to go into town to buy a new microphone because I'm not happy with the one I've got at the moment. Do you want to join that?" So now, I have plans for tonight, and I don't have to do everything alone. I don't have to go to events. It's really, really easy. Um, and again, people have the same mindset. They're not here to only explore or to party a lot or um, isolate themselves more. Everyone is here to make that connection work. And I think that is also why most people that stay at co-livings, I would say, are at least above 25, maybe even 30. Maybe 25 to 35, I would say, is the average age, maybe even until 40. Because most of us have traveled before or have traveled a lot and are a bit sick of hostels. Plus, we're all working, so we have a bit more money to spend. So then we might as well spend it on a nicer accommodation. And there's also many people who just have a 9 to 5 back home, but they are now able to travel while they work. So, of course, then they have the money to get a nicer apartment. So it's not all digital nomads, so don't feel like you have to be a full-time digital nomad to stay here. There's a lot of people that simply work remote for a certain period of time and then choose to go to co-livings. There's also people that don't actually work that much. But the nice thing about these co-livings is that you do get a lot of inspiration. Same goes for me. It doesn't really matter if you work or not. You come here and you get inspired by other people, what they do and how they structure their lives, what they do for work. And that is really, really fun as well. And I think there's one girl right now who's doing, she's hosting this co-living. So that is something that might also be interesting to know. Most co-livings have a community manager. So that is someone who is generally here and organizes things for the group. They make sure that if there's any problems with anything, you can go to them and say, "Hey, I don't know, this isn't working, that is empty," and they'll help you fix it, or you can ask them for recommendations around like what to do, and they'll help you organize, especially if you say, "Hey, I want to do something with the whole house. How can I best do this? Or do you have recommendations?" And that is really nice. So you're not just 7 strangers in a house, you're also with someone who knows a lot about the area or the place and is there in case there's anything wrong. So you're really, truly never completely on your own. But yeah, she is here to just manage and work here for a bit. And in the meantime, she's figuring out what she wants to do, which I think is really smart because what's a better place to figure out what to do than when you're surrounded by people already doing it, maybe in whatever way. So I also find it just really interesting to talk to everyone and see what they're doing. And there's one other person here who's been a digital nomad for 6 years, so he's a bit ahead of me. And it's interesting to hear his experience in doing this kind of lifestyle for that long, what he thinks are good and bad parts, and how he's managed to do this so long. I did hear him say that he is now thinking of living somewhere. So he is, I think, a bit tired of constantly moving around, which makes sense. But yeah, that is interesting to talk. So I wouldn't say that it's specifically only for digital nomads, but it is very popular with digital nomads. At the moment, it is mainly in Europe, I think, as far as I've seen. I've seen it mostly in Europe, although it is also emerging in other areas. I know it's in Asia as well. It's a couple spots in Africa, South America. But personally, I've only tried it in Europe. The first one I tried was 2 years ago in Crete, in Greece, and now the second one here in Barcelona. In Crete, I was there for a month, and it was a bit of a different setup. So what I noticed here, everyone can come and go whenever they want. You can just book your month, and when that is and when you leave doesn't matter. While the one I did in Greece was set. So there was a set start and end date. Everyone arrived on roughly the same day and also left on almost the same day. And what you get then is that it is a bit easier to talk and connect with everyone. Because as soon as you arrive, everyone gets to know each other. You all go out and do things. And you actually have a month to get to know everyone. While here, for example, I arrived and the next day, one girl already left. I'm leaving Wednesday, and I think on Tuesday, a new person comes. So it's a bit more mixed, which makes it a bit harder to actually talk to certain people just because simply you don't maybe run into them or don't see them, or they are not able to join an event and there's, only one before I leave. And that's a shame, but it's also easier for people to make it fit in their schedule. Of course, not everyone has the exact same time on the exact same week of the month or whatever. So it's just two different ways of doing it. I'm soon going to one where it's also set. It's just a co-living experience that's just 2 weeks. Everyone arrives on the same day and leaves on the same day. So you'll get to know each other a bit better. I guess I prefer it, but on the other hand, this is more flexible. So just so you know, those are the two ways that I've seen them so far. Generally, the community managers that I just talked about, they organize weekly events, excursions, things to do. There's anyway usually a weekly community meeting or dinner or lunch, whatever it is, where kind of everyone can say what they think of the co-living or what their plans are for the week so that we can already decide, hey, maybe we can all go out for dinner on Thursday. And that gives you even a greater sense of community because things are also just decided together, and it's still very relaxed though. So if you don't want to join because you're tired or you're busy, it's not a problem. Everyone here just has their own schedule and work. There's also actually many people here right now that work American time zone. I didn't have that when I was in Greece. Everyone worked European or mainly European. Or I guess they were just also more flexible in the time that they could work. But here there's a couple people that work on the American time. So that means they start at like 2 p.m. and they work till 11. Sorry, that scared me. A door, it's not shut. But so they work more towards the longer in the evening, where I still on European hours. So that's just different schedules, which is then a bit tougher to plan around, but still very manageable. And it also means that generally there's always someone working downstairs. So if you're not feeling that motivated, you can just sit with them and I get a lot of motivation also from seeing other people work. And as long as they're working, I'll just join and then I'm also focused and working. I think it's called mirroring or something. Works well on me. So that is easy. So good for work as well. Very motivational to talk to other people and what they're doing and seeing them work, and then you get motivated to work as well. The only thing, kind of the downside maybe to co-living, and this is something I actually also just spoke about with another person here, is that I think sometimes the costs are a bit higher. When I'm in Europe, I think it makes sense because if I am going to rent my own Airbnb, it is often, especially if I want it in a city center in a nicer location, around 1,000 to 1,200 euros a month. When a co-living is generally around 1,300 to 1,500 a month. So then I feel like the comparison makes sense because yes, it's a bit more expensive, but I get a lot more value back in sense of community and work and inspiration. And it's fun. It's really nice. Generally, also, so far as I've seen, the co-living locations and houses are really, really nice. Of course, because they know they're going to rent it out to multiple people. This is, again, a villa that I'm staying in, which was the same thing in Greece. I would have not been able to afford that if it was just me going there. And generally, the Airbnbs, they just don't work that way. You don't rent one room in a villa. You would rent the whole villa, which is definitely not in my budget. But because then it's a shared space and it's a co-living, then suddenly I can afford staying in these really, really beautiful locations. Plus you get, of course, your community again built in, and everything's just really fun and easy. And then I can justify for myself also the extra costs. I think it makes sense. But then I've also seen co-livings in South America and some in Asia that still handle the European prices, which I then find a bit harder to justify, especially if I can get my own apartment that is really, really nice, in a really good location for 500-600 a month. But then a co-living would still cost me 1,200. That's double. Then I find it a bit tougher to justify, and then I'd rather get my own Airbnb. And then, of course, I have to put a bit more effort into meeting people, but then I'm okay with that. So that is, I think, a bit the downside. Depending on the location, I do think it can be quite expensive. Again, it's all the comparison to where you're at. And I think for Barcelona, these prices are very reasonable, because Barcelona is not a cheap city, especially not compared to the rest of Spain. So then I think it makes sense. But in some locations, I just don't really understand it. But again, personal choice. I have also, especially in the Greek co-living, there was a little bit of drama. I was not very involved in that, but there was some drama. In the end, you do have people living together for a month. Not everyone is always going to get along. And I've also noticed there's always going to be people who don't really understand co-livings or have a different expectation of it maybe, or a different way of living in one. But I remember the one in Greece, there was one girl, we barely saw her. At some point we didn't see her for I think 5 or 6 days, and we were like, is she still here? Like, is she okay? Did she leave early? We had no idea. And that surprised me then a lot, because I thought, oh, but that's why you're paying extras for the social aspect of it. We didn't see her. I mean, I don't know why, and it's up to her. But it just surprised me, because then why not just book your own Airbnb? But yeah, and then there was some drama between people because they really didn't get along, and then the community manager came in and like fixed it. But it did create a bit of a divide in the group, which wasn't great. But yeah, that stuff also happens. I mean, it's the same in hostels, but you would think it would be less because everyone's adult, but no, it's still there. Now, in this one in Spain, that's not the case at all. And again, it's going to be different everywhere. I've stayed in hostels with lots of people and it was all fine. I've also stayed in hostels where there were just people that did not get along and there was drama. You never know before you get there. But yeah, I did think that was funny. Of course, the other downsides, you do have, in some ways, a bit less privacy. I still have my own room, my own bathroom. Like, I can work from here if I don't really feel like talking, or I'm not that social. But of course, if you do want to work in a bit nicer space, or if you want to cook, you are going to run into someone. You either like that or you don't. I personally right now love it because I want to have more chats and be a bit more social. But I do think it's good to have a mix. So for the next couple months, I am going to only stay in co-livings. So I'm curious to see how I feel about it in like 4 months. I do have a break in between where I stay in an apartment just with a friend. I don't know yet where, but I think it is good to have maybe a bit of a balance. Sometimes co-living, be a bit more social, do a bit more things, and then back to your own place, like an Airbnb, so that you can relax a bit more. You don't feel as much pressure to be social, and it's more of a choice that you make, like, okay, now I'm going to go ahead, go to an event and be social, instead of it being more built in. And of course, it is always hard to say goodbye. I think, especially if you're in the same apartment for a month, you get to know someone really well, and then it is difficult to say goodbye. Even now, I'm only here for a week, and I know I'm going to be sad when I have to leave on Wednesday. There's some really, really nice people here. I really enjoy the place itself. So that's going to suck. And I think probably the same thing will happen in Greece, but that is every time you travel. It just feels maybe a bit more intense because you also live together. So you don't only see each other when you go out or do an event. You see each other also while working, while having your breakfast, while chilling in the garden. It's, yeah. Um, in general, though, I only see positives of co-livings. I have just really, really, really enjoyed it so far. The reason I didn't do it much last year is simply because I couldn't find one that I could justify the costs for. And it was easier for me to just get an Airbnb. Plus, I was in places where I knew I was going to meet lots of people. I also had a friend at some point joining. My dad and my sister came to visit me. So every time it just didn't make any sense for me to get a co-living. But I do think it is so, so nice for digital nomads, people that work remote, work online. I 100% checking it out. Again, I will share a bit more about my experience at this particular co-living next week. Give you a bit of a room tour, because I know you can see a little bit now, but I'll give you a room tour, what it was like, my experience from the week as well. So you have an idea of what a week in a co-living looks like. It's going to be different, but I've noticed so far this week here has been very similar to my week in Crete. Although the one in Crete was a bit more relaxed because we had, of course, also a month to get to know each other. And we were a bit in a quieter place. Here we're very close to Barcelona, the city center especially. So there's just a bit more happening. But I really, really enjoy it, and I highly recommend you checking it out. I have some links on my website as well, including discounts. So I highly recommend checking that out if you're interested. There's a couple websites, or one website in particular I really enjoy, coliving.com. That's where I find most of the co-livings. It's a collection. It's like booking, but specifically for co-livings. I have a discount code for that as well. So check that out on my website. And of course, if you can't find it on there, it's always good to just check or Google co-living and then the city you're going to or the country. You'll find probably many more that might not be on that particular platform. But that's how I found many of them. And I'll also at some point add links to the ones I've stayed at that I actually really, really enjoyed, because I'm going to one in Greece and then I'm going to one in France. So then you know that those are good and approved and I like them. I'll check if I can get discount codes for those as well, or if I already have them. Because usually a lot of these co-livings do referrals. So it's not an affiliate, like I don't earn anything from it, but just simply because you've stayed at their location, they offer you a referral, because I think that's the best way to market anything, is to get a positive review from someone and them recommending it to you. So I'm not earning from those, but I will check if I have a referral code so that you know, I've been here. It was great. I loved it, and you could try it out too. If you have any other questions about co-livings, definitely let me know. I hope I gave you a good overview of what co-livings is, why I recommend it, what the difference is as well compared to booking your own apartment. But if you have any specific questions, let me know. You can either just comment here, on my Instagram. That's where I'm most active. Highly recommend following me there. And then I really hope to see you again next week. I will try my best to actually be on time next week and post it Monday morning and not Monday afternoon. But anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye bye.